Hello there everyone. Today I want to show you how to make this Kumihimo braid bracelet but using larger gauge wire. And this is what it looks like. And this I've just used some red coloured wire, but you can obviously use anything for it. And this is a 1mm wire. So it's just to show you that you can use different materials for a regular Kumihimo braid. So if you want to learn how to make that, then stay tuned. And these are the things that you're going to need. For this you'll need to use your round Kumihimo disc, because it's a round braid that we're going to be making. And then you'll need your wire. Now in this case I'm using some red coloured 1mm wire, but it can really be anything that you have. And it doesn't have to be this specific gauge, it can be larger or smaller. It's just to show you that you can make Kumihimo braid with a larger gauge of wire. And then you'll need a selection of pliers. So get your things together and then let's get started. So the first thing you need to do is cut all your wires ready. And what we need is 8 lengths of wire, because we're just going to be doing a basic Kumihimo braid with this. And the length is going to be roughly about 45 centimeters of each length. Obviously that depends a little bit on what it is you want to make with it, how long you want the final piece to be. But for about the bracelet size, then that should be fine. And then just get all your wires together in one end. And you just want to use one of the lengths, separate that out a bit, and just use that to wrap around all the others at the bottom, just a couple of times, like so. And you can always get flat nose pliers just to squeeze that in. It's more to not have the sharp end sticking out while you're working with it, so you might hurt yourself a bit. So that's now attached. You can still pull the other wires through, but it's just to kind of hold them together until we get the braid going. So that's ready now. So now we need to use a Kumihimo disc. So what we've done this end is just keep all our lengths of wire together. It's where we'd normally just put a regular knot to keep our cords together. So it's the same principle. It'll be temporary. So we get that end, and then we get a Kumihimo disc out, and I'm going to stick this through. And then it's a matter of separating out your wires and putting them into the notches that they need to go in. So because this is a basic Kumihimo braid, we're just going to be using basically the 4 dots on the disc and place our wires into them. So just get your wires and place them in the pairs, 4 pairs around your disc. And obviously because you're working with wire, it's going to be a little bit different than working with cord, because wire's got a bit more a mind of its own. So just do it gently and take your time, and then it should work out fine. And the last pair down at the bottom, like so. So that's now all the lengths of wire attached to the board, and it's just going to be in this position because it's just a basic braid we're doing, like I said. So now we need to start making the braid. So the way we do a basic Kumihimo braid is we just work with opposite pairs. So to begin with, we'll focus on these 2 pairs. So in my case, I take my top left one, bring it down, and then place it on the bottom left, so next to the bottom pair on the left side. And then I take the right one from that pair, bring it up, and stay on the right side of the top. And then we need to turn the disc like so, and I turn mine in that direction. And then again, you need to take the top left, bring it down to the bottom and stay on the left side, like so. And take the bottom right one and bring it up, like so. And again we need to turn it to the next pair. Take the top left one, bring it down above and stay on the left side, and then take the bottom right one, bring it over to the top and stay on the right side. So at first it's going to seem kind of strange when you're working with this at the beginning, because it doesn't really seem like much is happening, but just keep doing it and it'll eventually start to look like something. Again, turn it, next pair, over and down, the right one, over and up. Turn it again, top left one, over and down, bottom right one, over and up. And turn it. So if you've done a basic Kumihimo braid before, but with cord, it works the exact same way, the basic technique. The only thing obviously is it's a bit different to work with wire instead of cord, because it kind of acts differently. As you can see, you need to be a little bit more careful with it, because obviously your wire is kind of going all over the place and it's not soft like cord, so if you stab someone it's going to probably hurt. And then also when you're moving your wires, I recommend to try and, I'm going to move this one down, and then basically as you're moving your wires, keep trying to smooth them out, because what you want to do is avoid getting stuff like kinks and bends in your wire. Because that's going to then obviously affect the final look, but also it's going to weaken it, so it won't be as strong. So you just keep working with it gently, doing your basic steps. And then the beginning is probably going to look a little bit messy, but you can always leave that out and cut that off. So you just keep doing this, and you can always adjust it as you go, tighten things up if you're not quite happy. You can always use different colours as well within the same braid if you want to. That can give a nice different look. So you just keep doing this, working your way and building the braid. So I've kept going for a bit and my braid is growing, and I've now gotten to a point where I can braid more comfortably. Like I said, the beginning can obviously be a little bit messy. So now I've been doing it, so I pull my wires quite tight when I'm braiding. So I'll give quite a lot of tension on them, make sure I straighten them out, bring them over, and then pull them quite tight to give nice tension on the braid, to make it as tight and even as I can. So I'll pull my wires fairly tight, because then you'll be able to see the difference from the beginning, and then once you start pulling it tighter. Then on the back you have the braid coming out, and near the beginning you can see it's quite messy and loose looking. Then further down it gets a lot neater because I've been able to start pulling it nice and tight and give a lot of tension. And what you'll end up with is a quite delicate braid with wire really, but a little bit of spiral look to it as well. So that's what you're going to end up with. So continue braiding and doing this, making sure you pull the tension tight throughout so you get a nice consistent even look. Until you've used up your wires, and then I'll show you what we do next. Now I've continued braiding with my wires and I now only have a little bit left of them, but I've reached the length that I need, and I'm just going to then take off my wires from the Kumihimo disc because we're done with the braiding now. And with this you can just take them off. Well, unlike cord, you kind of have to make sure you tie them off or keep hold of them. With this you just take them off, and because it's wire it'll hold itself in shape, so it's not going to come undone or unravel or anything, as you can see. So like so. So now this is the finished braid. Then what we need to do now is finish off the ends. So this was the end where I started out, and where I told you in the beginning it can be quite loose and untidy. So if you have a way of finishing it off where you're not going to use the wire to finish it off, you can literally just cut off that end and then do whatever. But I'm actually going to use the wire to make the clasp part as well. So instead of just cutting it off, what I'm going to actually do is undo the wire. You're probably going to have to get your pliers for this. So what I wrapped around in the beginning, I'm just going to undo that. Like so. And then instead of cutting off this not so nice part of the braid, I'm actually just going to unbraid it, because I'm going to need one of these wires to make the clasp in this end. So obviously I'll get rid of the untidy bit, but also I need the length of a wire to be able to make the clasp. So you just keep unbraiding it until you reach where your nice, tight and neat braid begins. So I've now unbraided it until I reach the nicer part of the braid, and I have decent lengths left. So basically now we want to go in and cut off all of these lengths of wire except for one. So this is where I kind of look at them as I cut them to see which ones are the best ones to cut off. So this is really just figuring it out as you go. I prefer to then go in and cut off the outer ones off first. Just cut them nice and close to the braid. So the ones on the outside of the braid, I'm cutting them first. Because I want to end up with having one wire left, and I want that to be as close coming out of the middle of the braid as possible. So just cut one at a time, see how you get on, and the ones you've got left. I've got two left. See which one I prefer to use. I'm going to cut this one off. Like so. So I now have this one wire left. And all the other ends are cut off there. So now what you can do, what I recommend you do, is just get out either some flat nose pliers or some flat nose pliers but with protection on. Because especially if you're using coloured wire, you're better off using nylon coated pliers, because then you won't scratch it and take off the colour. And just squeeze down the end so all the ends get nice and squeezed together, and kind of help them taper inwards a bit, so nothing is sticking out, like so. And then also use this nylon coated plier to just straighten out this wire that we unbraided. You see, now it's nice and straight again, and we can then use this to form the one part of the clasp. But first we just need to make an end cap for this, as you can see on this one. You just need to make these little end caps to cover the very end, and the ends, the scratchy part of your wire. So the way I did that was I got a bit of more of the same wire out. I'm just going to leave this on the reel just because there's no point in wasting too much of it. And then I'm going to get my round nose pliers out, and this is what we're going to use to make that little end cap. So I'm going to put this towards the end of my wire and towards the very tip of the pliers, as far as you can get them. And then all we're going to do is start wrapping around your wire around your flat nose pliers. Just get it into position, keep hold, so keep your your round nose pliers nice and tight, and then just start wrapping your wire around them. So basically coiling around your round nose pliers with your wire. Because your round nose pliers have this shape, it tapers outward, which is then how we get the shape of the end caps. And you want to make sure you try and keep your wraps and your coils as nice and tight and close together as possible, because that's just going to help make it look as nice and neat. So basically just keep wrapping until you reach the size that you need them to be. Remember that the opening bit at the bottom, when you take it off, is the part that's going to cover the end of the braid. So you need to make sure that's large enough to go over the end of your braid. So that could be stuffed in there basically, and we'll cover everything. Making sure your coils are nice and tight. What you can do as well is move your round nose pliers, because even you could do that after wrapping a couple of times, then you can't pull them out like this, they're not going to go anywhere. They're in there nice and tight. So you just keep wrapping like that until you reach the size you need it to be. So I now kept coiling around, and I reached the size that I feel like it needs to be. So you go in and cut off the wire, like so, and just put the rest away. So we're done with the wire on the reel now. So now we have this left on your round nose pliers, and like I said, you can't just pull this off, it's way too tight. So what we need to do is go in at the top and cut off some of the wire right at the top, and then just try and pull this top tail out like so, and then you'll be able to pull it off. And there you basically have your end cap. Now if it's a little bit out of shape, you can always just reshape it a little bit, but otherwise what I'm just going to do as well is the very tip, what you just cut off at the top, I'm just going to grab my flat nose pliers and make sure to kind of feed that inside the coil so it hides away, because you want to make sure you don't have anything that sticks out and that scratches skin in any way. And the same at the bottom, you just want to make sure to get that end out of the way, like so. And then you can grab your braid to make sure it's the right size as well. And you put the end that you just got ready through that, and you put this and put your braid into it. And just try and press it in there. Like so. So if you're happy with that, and the size, if you're not quite happy, maybe if the bottom's too large, you can always go in and cut off some of the coils at the bottom to make it a little bit smaller. But otherwise, you make sure all the ends of the braid that you cut off are stuck into that end cap that you just made, because that's then going to avoid the hole, leaving anything to be able to scratch or catch on anything. So like so. And then all you have to do on this end is to make one of the clasp part. Obviously the other end you want to do the same. You want to make 2 of these end caps, so you can do the same on the other end. Get rid of all of these ends apart from one. So on this end you want to make either the loop or the hook. So on this end I'm going to make my loop for the hook to go into. So the way we need to do that is you can just get a pair of your pliers and just hold the end cap in place as far pressed down as you want it to sit, so you don't risk it going up and you make your loop in the wrong place. So make sure your end cap sits in the right place, and then go in and make a little bend in your wire. And then when you've done that, you grab something round like a pen or something, and then you put that on that bend. It can just be anything really, just what you want the clasp, the shape to be. And then you put your wire around that, all the way around till it comes out on the other side like this. And you can take it out and see if you're happy. You can always adjust it a little bit, see if you're happy with that loop. And if you are, you can grab hold of it with some pliers or something else, or just hold it with your hands. And then this end we want to wrap around that little space that you left free. So we're basically creating a wrapped loop to hold everything in place. And you just want to keep wrapping this until you pretty much can't go any further, because of the end cap. So when you reach that point, cut off the excess, and then get your flat nose pliers and just press the end in. Run your finger over it so you can feel there's nothing there scratching or catching. And if there isn't, you're happy with it, then that's done. So that's one end. And all you do at the other end is make your hook. And then on this end, I prepared my end cap, cut off all the excess wires, so I'm only left with one, and I'm just going to do the hook on this end. So what you do is you get your flat nose pliers for that, you go up maybe about 5 centimeters, it all depends how large you want your hook to be. So you go up however much you want to, and then you want to bend it back on itself, basically all the way around, so it comes down next to itself. And then you want to squeeze that end just gently to get it as nice and tight as possible. So you have something like this. So you have your wire coming from the braid out through the end cap, all the way up, bending back on itself and down next to itself. And then we need to again leave a little bit of space to be able to do a wrap to secure it in place. So I'm going to just bend this up like so. And then you can use some pliers. Again, if you're using coloured wires, I recommend you have some nylon coated pliers. You just hold these together while you then use this end to wrap around and secure it in place, making sure all the time your end cap is nicely pressed as far down as it'll go, and just make your coils and your wraps around to secure it all in place again until it pretty much just won't go any further, until you used up all that space that you left, like so. So I'm going to take that out, get my wire cutters and then cut off the excess, and then flat nose pliers to just press down the end to hide it away, like so. So you've now wrapped it in place, and all we need to do now is create the hook. So to do that, you can just get your round nose pliers out and go up till roughly about the middle of this section where you bent the wire back on itself, and then place that in your round nose pliers depending on how large you want the hook to be, and then just fold this back around like so. So you make a little loop here, a nice and smooth rounded loop, and then I like to just go in on the very end of your wire, so here, and just kink it outward like so. So you have this shape on the loop. So that's both your hook on this end and your loop done. So all that's left to do now is shape the bracelet, and because it's wire you don't have to worry about it breaking or anything. You quite easily do this. Just do it gently and gradually and make it into like a rounded oval shape until you reached position and the shape that you need it to be, something roughly like this. And then you just use your hook through your loop, and that's your bracelet done. And you can just manipulate the shape until you're completely happy. That's a good thing about wire. Quite malleable, like so, and that's basically your finished bracelet. So quite a nice delicate look really, and obviously you can easily make this in whatever colour you want and all the different gauges of wire like I mentioned. So a nice tight little wire braid, Kumihimo braid, and pretty nice and delicate look. So I hope you enjoyed that, and thank you very much for watching. Hello there everyone. Today I want to show you how to make this 2-colour frilly macrame technique. And this is what it looks like. So you have these loops that are called pickets running up the sides of your square knots, and that's why I like to call it a frilly macrame technique. Just the texture it gives. So you can use this in many things. This is just to show